Can it change our politics?
Yeah, Jake, with regards to voting in Kenya, I remember when we were in that show together, I told you, unless we have a sanctity of the vote in our country, unless we know that whatever that you're voting for,
Mhm.
or whoever that you're voting for at a polling station is the person that will be declared the winner. As long as we have an election body that can be compromised in our country, then I want to say here without fear of contradiction that even if you have a person who's running for office of CJ being voted for, you are more likely to end up in a even bigger mess than you are in right now. Because right now as a country, we have the vetting process for the CJ and deputy CJ. So they go through the vetting process. We have a JSC. Now, the JSC will give names, will recommend names for appointment. And it goes back to the person who's called the president to pick a name. And you know, in the Republic of Kenya, it is all about interests. So if at all right now we are facing a situation where the JSC arrangement and the vetting process was a very good idea. It was a noble idea if it could be used in the proper way. Because even the person, you see, let me just go back to the appointment of Maraga. Remember when Maraga was being appointed to the office? Nobody even knew Maraga. We rarely knew, nobody. Tulikuwa tuna expect majina kubwa kubwa to take over the office of CJ. Right? But then Maraga is a person we know very clearly. Hata we unajua, hata from the way Maraga spoke even juzi kwa ile, I think alikuwa kwa kanisa or something. This is a person ambaye aliyeko kwa hiyo ofisi without influence ya mtu mwingine. Because Maraga has a history ya kukua clean. He is one of the judges ambao hungewahi sikia na scandal. And ile video ilikuwa uliona ikicheza juzi kwa mitandao akisema kuna mtu hata alijaribu kumlipa, you know, wakati alisimamisha sijui ilikuwa ni mafuta. So Maraga hakuna mtu alikuwa anatarajia atakuwa. That is what was meant by, you know, having the JSC vet candidate, and then these candidates get interviewed, and then a candidate who emerges at the top gets appointed into that office. That was the initial plan. Unfortunately, Kenyans, we have a way ya kucorrupt vitu. Na hiyo kitu imeendelea na appointments za not only the judiciary but all these other offices, you know. So right now, huyu mtu ambaye anaitwa CJ, if I as the president, being the last person with the influence ya make appointment into that office, if I decide ya kwamba hata mkiniletea majina tatu ya Mzalendo, ya Jex na ya Alex, na niseme kwa hawa watu watatu mtu ambaye naona anaweza influence in the future anisaidie ni Mzalendo, I can decide hata kama Jex amepata 90% na Mzalendo amepata 70%, I can decide to go with Mzalendo because I know I have scratched your back today. Na kesho wewe uta scratch my back. That is where we get it wrong, and that is where we are right now. If we decide right now ya kwamba tunaenda kuvote for CJ, it happens. I know Mzalendo unapiganga kura, ukienda kupiga kura unachaguanga mpaka judge, but you do not even sometimes know huyu judge ni nani. It happens. Mi nimeenda kupiga kura nimepigia judges, sijui nimepigia na hata siwajui, you know, because I have no interest in knowing them. Ama for example, hakuna mahali tunakutana nao. But in our current situation where the CJ atakuja kudecide at a later time what goes on, probably from a political dispute whereby the presidency is in kuna kungangana kwa uchaguzi urais. Then kama wewe ni mtu ambaye unafaa kupanga mambo yako mapema, unachaguaga mtu ambaye unajua unaweza muinfluence, and that is what is happening in our country. Huyu huyu CJ mwenye tuko naye Martha Koome. Martha Koome, when she got appointed there, people said alikuwa ni mtu wa Uhuru Kenyatta. You know, people said, and others assumed because she's from the civil society, she's going to be one of the CJs ambao atakuwa strict on law, you know, rule of law namna hiyo. Up to date, some of us tuna regret ni kwa nini alichaguliwa kwa hiyo kiti, and it's not just because of what happened with the whatever presidential or whatever suit. It is it's because of other things that have followed that. Right now, even the MPs themselves wanasema the judiciary is a failure. Even the president mwenyewe mwenye alikuwa in cahoots now kupata hiyo kiti, hata yeye anawablame because the judiciary has become weak. The CJ is no longer seen. You know, Jakes, you want to know how insecure a person is. The CJ of the Republic of Kenya has a Twitter handle, and this is just like as whatever of the whatever. Huyu ni mtu ambaye ako na Twitter handle, lakini hawezi kubali criticism. You cannot criticize the CJ of the Republic of Kenya kwa sababu ameblock comments. The CJ is so vulnerable in the Republic of Kenya to such an extent that hata anaogopa kutembea areas zingine. He is just the CJ mwenye anaweza toka hapo aende Meru na kurudi, because she has shown our country, she has been seen in our country to be a CJ that is not worth leading such a body. So hata ukisema tupigie hii watu kura, mtu kama Mzalendo ukimpigia kura alipoteza nomination ya ODM. So how
you keep on yani every time ukideona lazima mwenyewe acha nikubali yani ndio mutulie kabisa.
How do you expect a CJ in the name of Mzalendo to be impartial? So we have a system problem. Hii problem yenye iko Kenya si ya mtu binafsi, ni system imefail. Na sijui ni nini tutafanya kurekebisha hii.
Alex, same question. Then I come to Mzalendo and Kenya Rebel. Some of our questions, could it be solved by us electing a CJ, electing even the IBC chairperson? Because these are matters that eventually we don't really get a clear solution, you know, so that we don't have a government tutasema imewekwa na mtu. Ni sisi tumejiwekea, hata kama wataingia wa mess, but we voted for the IBC chairman, tulijiwekea CJ, you know, these institutions that eventually affect those who govern us. What do you think? Can that idea work?
In Kenya, it cannot work. And the reason is you create another conduit for corruption. Every new institution that you want to check becomes a scandal. So the vetting process, the voting process, the declaration process, it was so messy. Because this is a constitutional office that is very important. But let us start with the prosecutors. Then we end up with the let us start with the prosecutors to know how the public prosecutors can do, to know if they can serve us, if cases can be expedited, to know, and then we go one step at a time. But the CJ, I think that's a big seat to kufanya kura kwa sababu first of all it cause contention. This election cycle tunakuanga nazo pia tunakuja tunachoka. Unaelewa? And the amount of money we use is too much. So I don't think right now it will be over a solution. But if we start with prosecutors, I think then the work of the prosecutor is to expedite and prosecute cases so that people don't stay in court for a long time. Then if we find it's working, then we can go to the judges and then we go to the CJ. But we just can't start from up. That's my take.
Okay. So naona GK asema Jex, you need to involve the participants in the comment section. Okay, let me do that. Naona GK Baru nasema Raimosegon, it is the duty of every good citizen to be involved in their government. Okay. Mesu unasema maybe he's good at covering his track everywhere is about interest, not only in Kenya. Good year unasema it's all fire, keep it going, great job, asante sana. Bwana Mzalendo, same question, what do you think if we were to elect our CJ, what would that mean? If we were to elect our IBC chairperson, sisi tujichagulie, tusi president asi control, what would that mean from where you sit? I know you're in the US, you choose judges, or rather you elect judges. What would it mean if we were to do that in Kenya?
You see, if we were to elect, if these positions were elective, like the sheriff position is elective here, the people who sit in the board, those are elective. School boards are elective. They are on the ballot. You participate in an election to elect them. If you were to elect a judge, for example, then this is what it means. He is not answerable to the presidency, he is not answerable to any other organ other than the people of the Republic of Kenya. That gives him the power and the mandate to conduct his duty diligently. But if we leave it to an appointing authority, 5 people to elect a judge for us, and then the president, the name is taken to the president, then to a parliament, which can be manipulated, then that is where the problem is. Largely we borrowed a constitution from a piece from the US and other places, others we drafted back, and we married with what we had. So we borrowed a constitution that was working so well in the US. But now we didn't look at the years the US has taken to build that particular constitution. It has taken so many years to amend it, to rectify it, to become what it is today. The Kenyan constitution, right now as it is high time that it is reviewed. It is high time that is reviewed, and we see the excesses of this particular document that we have. We have what you call over-representation. Whether we are going to elect our judiciary, or whether we are going to for these other positions, we are overrepresented. There's a lot of duplication. Hata ukiulizwa vizuri, kazi ya MCA, kazi ya senator, kazi ya women rep, kazi ya MP, kazi ya governor, kazi ya ministers in the constituency, kazi ya county is called what? County commissioner. Then we are so overrepresented, and there are no checks. For example, right now the county governments are passing a budget that is controlled by the MCA. So who is going to oversight the MCA? A political party controls the whole county. A political party controls the whole country. Who is going to check that county? Who is going to check? And they are in the same political party. They sit in the same meeting. The government campaigns for his MCAs to elect him or her in a particular position. They get elected, all of them. They belong to ODM, and others belong to UDA. Who is going to call the shots? Who is going to say no? So the constitution never saw a situation whereby we'll have a one-party system or devolve corruption in the grassroots. So corruption has gone down to the grassroots. So these are some of the things that I had PLO talking the other day, that it is time that we check our constitution, we remove the excesses, and we see whether it works for us.
Okay, Kenyaribe, same question. Yeah, you did, and I'm equally slightly glad you answered that way. It has really informed me in some ways. Now, Kenya Lee, same question before I bring the next part of the question.
As far as the system is good, is we have people who don't want to commit to it, but we are like, oh, the system is not working. Listen, human nature, we are corrupt people. That's why we have these laws. So people like Ruto, who wants to usurp power and bypass the judiciary and the parliament and the he can be stopped so that they can check each other. That's why we have three arms of government. Okay. So just because Raila Odinga lost the elections, presidential election, he can't say that, oh, you know, Maraga is bad, Koome is bad, but when they rule on his favor, then he's good. See, it's childish. The problem is not the system. The problem is the individuals, and we can check them. We just don't do that. Okay. Now, I want to quickly gloss over what my friend said. 89 MPs won't make a difference in the finance bill, voting for the finance bill. Okay, but show up. Sifuna, who you've talked about today, I've mentioned him more than 3 times. Okay, he tweeted that day and said, "I salute all the heroes that were there who debated and fought against this bill." What a warrior! I want to see that as my representative. Not someone who absconds from the voting process, then complain about the very thing that he could have participated in. Okay. Well, Makiadi asked, where's the Kenya to shilling to shilling deal? That we were even debating it here when Ruto said he wanted to deal with the shillings to shilling, whatever. It was in your Business Daily, Nairobi Business News. It was everywhere. You can just go to the archives of Makiadi if you want to check on that. Okay. And a week later, Ruto made a speech you can pull up in YouTube about the dollar dumping the dollar, and it went viral. Okay. And lastly, Raila is an individual who can work with whoever he wants. Yes, I agree with you that he can work with whoever he wants. Okay. But what I'm saying is this, you can't just, call somebody Ruto Mwizi, like Zalendo was giggling there. You call him Mwizi. Then when Raila joins him, now everything is cool and dandy, like we did with Uhuru. Uhuru was murdering people, doing all sorts of things, a dictator by any stretch of imagination. But when Raila became a handshake, now Uhuru is good. Nowadays we are saying, in fact, the Uhuru years were wonderful. I think we will suffer from amnesia if you think Uhuru was good. So in summation, I'm saying this. Let's not pick and choose. The law is there to balance everything. Let's stick to the law and we'll see how this system works perfectly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, the last question I have for you before I allow you to freestyle. I begin with you again, Makiadi. I ask you this: if there is a law in Kenya that at times it's taken for granted and highly abused, and it's the law that can really prevent some of these bills even seeing the light in parliament, it's the part of public participation. Mkenya anajua what in the world public participation is. Do you even do it properly, thoroughly, and the masses, do they even really engage? Because William Ruto yesterday said that, oh, the people of Kenya said, you know, as much as he was being told, apana, when you go to the hazards, when you go to what was written in the public participation forums, many Kenyans said no to the housing levy. But a leader will tell you, apana, the people of Kenya said, the people, it's like, where you sit, how can we improve the public participation policy? How can we make it proper? And that if truly it hasn't, because one time I think the judges said it's not easy to really quantify how much enough is public participation, whether little or much, it's not easy to quantify. But how can we improve our law that it's possible for us to really say that this bill, truly, whether itapita ama itaanguka, the Kenyan people participated in it, so that a leader does not push things down our throat by saying to participate in it, and many even didn't have the opportunity to do that. So from where you sit, Makiadi, what do you think we can do to really strengthen that part, that element of, because some of these things are just mentioned in the constitution, but really do they really work for us, Makiadi?
Yeah, I think one thing that all of us agree here is this thing public participation is like it's like a formality, so to speak. You know, sometime back when I think it was Uhuru Kenyatta who wanted to do something, and then the courts said no, there was no public participation. Then these people decided, you know what, we will try to do this thing as a formality. But you must ask yourself, what is the threshold that can be, judged as enough for people to say that there was public participation in ABCD? I go back to the time, I think, was it the IEBC? Can't remember very well what the IEBC was trying to do. And the court said that there was no public participation. Sijui ilikuwa ni nini, Jex, labda utanikumbusha hapo. And then,
ilikuwa BBI.
Was it BBI?
Yeah.
No, BBI haikufika kwa IEBC. There was something that was very crucial. I think, was it tendering process? Kuna wakati I can't remember very well. Kumbuka wakati kuna wakati
BBI ilikuwa thrown out because of not proper public participation.
No, even the BBI, leave alone the BBI. The BBI, there was a lot of effort that was put in the BBI. I just want to take you back to, there was a time when I think, I can't remember, but nitakumbuka hiyo kitu. Then it looks like when the courts try to have these bodies involve mwananchi before making a decision, then these bodies go back and come up with a way that they can circumvent the whole process and do it as a formality. And that is one problem in tuko nayo in Kenya. I think kitu inaitwa public participation, lazima tukue na threshold. Lazima tukue na threshold ambayo tunaweza sema this threshold was reached or there was an attempt ya kufika hii threshold, so tunaweza sema at least mwananchi alitoa hoja zake. But then hata ukitoa hoja zako hapo, if you participate in the so-called public participation, does your voice count? That is one thing we should be asking ourselves. Kwa sababu when you go to the finance bill, a bill imepitishwa ya kuongeza watu levy and all that, levy and the taxes ya manyumba and all that. It was done as a formality to show the courts ya kwamba at least we have tried. And you see, the opposition was there. Opposition, yani sisemi opposition in terms of parliament. There was opposition kutoka kwa mwananchi. Mwananchi alisema, we do not agree with this thing. It was very, 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 well rejected across the board, regardless of the political affiliation. But they still went ahead and passed it. You see? So if we cannot have a way of, identifying what threshold we want to see in our public participation, then it is going to be difficult for us to say that there was enough input ya mwananchi kwa hii bill, so it is okay for us to pass it in parliament. But I still go back to what I said earlier. The current parliament we have feels like it is an appendage. It feels like it is part of the executive. That is why you have MPs who are allied to the government of the day saying sisi katika serikali. They have forgotten ya kwamba they work on behalf of mwananchi mwenye ako kwa constituency. So regardless of whether you are an MP from the opposition side or the government side, your role is to make sure that the policies the government of the day passes are policies that are, beneficial to mwananchi. Anything that feels like inafinya mwananchi, unatakikana upinge hiyo kitu. Unaona? So this is just the same as what you said, Jake. Regardless of whether we ni ODM, Azimio ama Kenya Kwanza, if something unaona itaenda kuumiza mwananchi, unafaa usimame na kusema no, we cannot support this. But look at the current parliament iko sahi. Regardless of whether ni ODM, look at what decisions are made in parliament. Most of the things zinakujanga pale kwa rubber stamp. You see, the president can stand somewhere in a podium with certainty na aseme hii kitu tutapitisha kwa bunge next month. Unaona, tutapitisha kwa bunge, tumeshatunga sheria, tutapitisha kwa bunge, then we can implement this. When the executive speaks about something that is going to go to the parliament with certainty, with so much certainty ya kwamba ni kama hakutakuwa na pingamizi yoyote, there's not even going to be a debate, then you should be asking yourself, is the parliament that is currently in existence part of the executive ama inasimama pale kusaidia mwananchi? From where I stand, I believe the parliament of the Republic of Kenya has failed us, failed us so much to an extent that the executive does not need even to involve people in public participations. All it needs is just to instruct the parliament, and everything and anything it says goes through parliament. How are we supposed to change this? Kitu moja tunafaa tuwe tunajiuliza. Mimi, my proposal was this. I believe we should be in a country where political parties ziwe abolished. That is one thing. You know, political parties have been used to blackmail people. That if this na mzalendo mko kwa chama moja, you must speak the same language. That is that has been our problem for a long time. Na ukiangalia wakati unaenda against a position that has been taken by your party, unaitwa rebel. Na in the real sense, umesimamia ukweli. You see, mtu kama wa Mushomba alipata a lot of stone throwing, alirushiwa mawe sana kwa sababu alisemekana anaenda against party position. And it looks like yeye ni member wa Azimio lakini amekuja kuharibu UDA. But look at what she was saying. She was very clear ya kwamba I talked to my people na wakaniambia, those people who brought me to this house told me they do not agree with this thing, and that is why ninasimama hapa nikisema I also do not support this, because I am a servant to those people that brought me here. So the political party has been something that has destroyed our democracy for a long time. Both people in ODM, Azimio, Jubilee, all that, wanna experience the same thing. If you don't agree with what your party leader says, or if you don't agree with your party position, then you are taken as a rebel. If at all we can change our systems, we have to begin from the party level. I wish there was a law that will be passed ambayo itasemekana there are no party affiliations in our country, so that wakati Jex unaenda kuchaguliwa wewe unajitetea pale. You know, we are in a country whereby ukishinda ticket ya UDA Nandi County kwa nomination, wewe chukua ndege enda holiday, utachaguliwa MP.
It's like a
Exactly, hiyo ni guarantee. Ukishinda tu nomination ya ODM Nyando we enda relax, enda beach, oga na kinyasa and all that, utachaguliwa. Alafu sasa inakuja wakati ambapo party position inatoa position ambayo si kitu ambayo inasaidia mwananchi, ama it is not of beneficial to the common man, to the electorate. And if you go against that, then you'll be branded a traitor, you'll be branded a sellout. Na alafu committee itakuita, inaitangwa disciplinary committee, itakuita ikukalishe chini ikuambie either you pay this amount or we kick you out. So how are we going to get out of this political bondage? We should try to search a way that we can abolish the political parties in the Republic of Kenya so that people can think independently. Si kungojea mzalendo aseme kitu kwa sababu yeye ni chairman wa ODM, akisema left sisi wote tunaenda left, akisema right sisi wote tunaenda right. I think that is where we should be going as a
I want to come to you, Mzalendo, before I come to Alex. Mzalendo, we elect them as our representative. They speak on our behalf, but we speak through them. So how comes that they refuse to come back to us when matters concerning us that require public participation, they fail to do it? And because I think as much as nimechagua huyu mtu mmoja, some of the issues, they ought to come back to us. We have a forum, we have Kamkunji, we have town hall meetings, so that we deliberate on the issues. You know, we agree, we send them again to speak and say, this is what we, the people of Nyando, the people of Mugirango North, Mugirango South, Nyaribari Chache, Nyaribari Wengi, all those places. This is what we are saying. How comes public participation is almost a joke in our country? How can we improve it? What needs to be done so that truly the voice of Mwananchi, the president does not need to mix his words when he's asked, Did you carry out public participation? What you are doing, is it what Kenyans told you? So that he does not seem to be mixing his words. Can we, or how can we improve our public participation? Mzalendo?
When public participation, thank you, Jakes, and thank you, Makiadi, for that kind of response. And at least now we are thinking on the same direction. Now, when public participation was enshrined in the Constitution, the 2010 Constitution, it simply meant that the power is now given back to the people to decide on what they want, to decide on how they need to be governed, to decide on the priorities of our projects that they want to participate in. But why do the MPs avoid public participation? First, it is the cost of doing the exercise. You find that there are areas that are very, very vast. For example, if you go to constituencies like Mandera, barely you'd find that you'd cover the entire area. Or there's a lot of lack of civic education, such that you'll come back and articulate the issues that are being discussed in the national government to your people. That is why political parties take center stage in local politics, because people don't want to know why the party has taken this kind of direction. So long as ni mtu wetu ndio chairman ama party leader wa hii chama, hapo ndio tutafuata. Akisema left, vile Makiadi amesema, ni left ni left. Akisema right ni right. What we can see what we can see seated in the bottom of Lake Victoria, nobody can see you where. So that's those kind of nonsensical talks is what makes it difficult for people to participate in these exercises. But by and large, the reason why we wanted it in the constitution is because our leaders during Moi's times were manipulating us. They were not giving us projects that are priority to the needs of the people. So public participation is something that should be encouraged. The only problem is how do we monitor that a particular leader has done public participation in whatever agenda that is bringing in parliament or whatever agenda that is bringing in the county assembly. So there's no way that we can monitor, or I wish there were records that can be kept safely somewhere on each and every exercise that we participate as the public. There are records that we can go by and see that we all agreed on this particular position, because we can participate as citizens. Then whatever the MP or your leader presents in parliament is something totally different from what we said on the ground. So that is my take on public participation.
Honorable Lexi, tell me, what would be your view on public participation?
I think I still have the same view like both of Makiadi and Jex. I think public participation became useless when it became conduit of money, because you're given money, you go call vijana wa bodaboda, unawapeleka kwa hoteli, unawapaia nyama, mnasaini hizo vitu, maneno inaisha. So it became very useless. I remember one time I was in Nyamira. I had gone home, so nikatoka kwa nyumba, nilikuwa jioni, nikasema acha niende Nyamira nikae huko kidogo. Kufika huko nikapata, because I had put a very good suit. MCA akafikiria, I'm also a leader, and welcome, kakula, only to come to know that that was part of the public participation. All he asked me is the education sector, how do I see it in Nyamira? So we spoke a little bit, and the people who were there were so ignorant. They were so happy that they had eaten. Pesa kidogo ya kwenda wapi? Nyumbani. So that's how public participation in Kenya, to a point that we think it was a wastage of money. especially the county level. They were so bad because now the wastage of money. Somebody could budget up to 100 million just for public participation for the what? The whole county. And you can imagine hiyo 100 million huwezi tumia yote. Nyingi tutatumia maybe ni 2 million. 98 million imeenda kwa mfuko. Imeenda kwa mfuko. So I'm one person who after that nikakuwa against. I had never come to any public participation in my life. I heard about public participation, but thereafter nikaanza kuendanga. Kisi ilikuanga nayo wakati Muheria alikuwa same thing. Manyang'nyo alikuwa naye Kisumu wakati moja nilikuwa hapo same thing. I came to know that public participation wasn't anything that we should buy. It was a conduit to make the governor more rich. Yeah, that's what I will say.
Kenyaribel, you are an advocate of public participation. How should it be done? How should really a proper public participation be conducted?
In my view, I think once the Wananchi understand the power dynamics between the people and their employees, who are these senators and MPs and all that, it will improve. We have to be contextualize what we're talking about. The Constitution has been what? Is it 13 years old now? That's a young democracy. Even Kenya as a whole is a young democracy. We have a way 2 years to go, okay, compared to, let's say, US, which their constitution has had, I don't know, hundreds of amendments. I don't know how many amendments. So, but one thing, the reason why I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic about it is because, especially when you saw the finance bill, okay, you saw how people were really engaged and they wanted to find out. It was a topic of every baraza and everyone was talking about it. And now we are having little groups that are cropping up like the Bunge la Wananchi, even though they are comical, but they actually have, they raise issue that we care about, even though they are jokers. I mean, they make fun of every situation. So we are heading to the right direction. It will take time for us to demand the ideal public participation as far as, these Wabunge will feel the need to come back to their constituency and check whether they should vote for a bill or not. It will take time. As people watu wanazidi kuchanuka about governance and the role that they should play, it will naturally force these wanabunge to come to the constituency and check with their constituency to see if they should vote for a bill or not, okay? Because of right now, we have people like Selassie who, get drunk on whatever and they don't care about public participation and they still survive. So I say with time, we'll be all right. But we have to educate ourselves. Public, I mean, it's good we are discussing it. Spread the word, the political activists. This is our time. So yes, I'm optimistic about the future.
Now, my final question to all of you, it's corruption, and I'll talk about it in the sense of our debt. Makiadi, I begin with you again. When it comes to our debt, the goalpost always changes. One time in a reduce, ama inaongezeka, because we are not even really sure how much is our debt, who do we owe, how was that money used, how much remained, because I don't think at times what namaliza maybe sometimes ni kuporwa zinaporwa, then how much has been paid, what is remaining. Now my question is this to you, Makiadi, so as to prevent corruption and truly to prevent leaders hiding in the name of we are paying our debts and all. Should our debts be published almost maybe quarterly or yearly in our newspapers so that we know this is the debt we owe, these are the guys we owe, this is the much that has been paid, this is the much that is remaining, this is what this debt was it for recurrent expenditure, was it to do a road in Kimilili, publishing these records for the public, will it help in preventing what Nyakango was trying to raise, that kuna loans, there is no project attached to it. She's even told atafute tu ka project akafix tu hapo kwa hizo pesa. Publicizing our debt to the public, those we owe, how much and all, can it help, one, creating more transparency, two, reducing the avenues of corruption? Because I think the fact that we don't know, because you see, we don't know, we don't know kama tumechukua, we'll hear about it later on. Can it help reduce corruption? Because these guys still, those things that Kenyans are not informed about. What do you think?
Sawa, Alex maki yake ilikuwa on. I think Jake umeuliza swali mzuri sana na sometimes mimi I'm perplexed. I am amazed when people believe what William Ruto says. The one thing ninataka kuuliza hapa, because you people follow what happens in Kenya very closely. I want you to ask yourself, what was set as our ceiling in terms of public debt? And what happened when William Ruto came in? Because you have to understand how much the Kenyan economy can take as a maximum in terms of borrowing. What Parliament did is, I'm even looking for the figures hapa kwa sababu sitaki nipeane nini ya uongo. Parliament ilikuja hii Parliament and they changed the way we assess our debts. So
they capped it to
yes, it was changed from was it we had a ceiling ilikuwa ya ngapi? I'm trying to find
10 trillion, and then they removed it, and I think it's now based on our GDP or something like that.
GDP, correct.
Yeah.
They removed the ceiling ambayo ilikuwa ni 10 trillion. Sasa wanaibase na I think 55% if I'm not wrong ya GDP. So okay, kitu ya kwanza, we have to be honest with ourselves. If you say 55% ya GDP, then that's a moving target. No. 10 trillion is a number. It is cast on stone. Tunajua 10 trillion hatuwezi pita. But when you tell me that we are pegging now our debt as a percentage to our GDP, then it means we have no boundaries. The more our economy grows, the more our GDP grows, the more we can borrow. But also, looking at that, we have to look at what we are borrowing for. Wewe angalia na mzalendo, sometimes ukikuja hapa tutakutana debate ingine hapa, mimi nataka uniambie. I heard you before hapa. I'm sorry to go kando ya point yenye nilikuwa nataka kusema. Nisikia kitambo ukisema hapa kidogo awali hapo ya kwamba Ruto amefanya mambo mingi sana na ile pesa ameomba. William Ruto tangu ingia kwa ofisi ameomba almost 4 trillion Kenyan shillings. I would want you, my brother mzalendo, to point one thing, just one thing, kitu moja peke yake, development ambayo unaweza onyesha watu useme true, we have borrowed and this is the infrastructure ambayo tumeweka ile pesa tumeomba imefanya ABCD. Show me one thing in this government. Then if we are able to show what we are doing with the money, even if utaenda kukopa watu watasema yenyewe amekopa, but we can see what the money is doing in terms of improving life of mwananchi, barabara kama ni barabara, bridge and all that stuff, dam na vitu kama hizo. Vitu zinaonekana. This government fears accountability. Na hiyo ni kitu ambayo nimeona kwa sababu there is so much back and forth whereby you see when people want to ask what we are borrowing for, somebody comes up with a blanket statement and tries to downplay the concerns of mwananchi. When the central bank says there is a problem, when the CS says there's a problem, somebody else comes and says, we will have to wait until probably after 10 years and tuone why we are borrowing. So that tells us that you want to continue borrowing without accounting for the money yenye unaomba. Hii kitu inaitwa debt kwa nchi yetu, Jakes. Itafika mahali ambapo itakuwa uncontrollable. Itafika bursting, inaitangwa nini? A point of mahali itakuja kubust ambapo itashindwa kuwa controlled in such a way that services the government hazitaweza kuendelea, because most of the money, wacha hii 55 tunasema ya GDP, 55 against the GDP, this government is going to be in a position whereby itakuwa inashindwa hata ku run on a daily basis because ya ile amount yenye itakuwa inatakikana kulipa. And I said here some time back, there's a Eurobond ambayo Uhuru Kenyatta na William Ruto deputy wake walichukua. All of us know that we are supposed to have 500 billion Kenyan shillings by mwezi wa sita, I think mwezi wa sita next year. Wakati gari inaishanga hewa huwa inatembea na rimu. Mahali economy ya Kenya saa hii iko kwa rimu, na tunaenda kufika mahali ambapo we have been talking about defaulting is not an option. Venye Kenyari amesema defaulting is not an option, but then we have to look at our sources of revenue and see if we are growing our sources of revenue. From where I sit, since William Ruto came into power, we have not grown our sources of revenue. In fact, the Kenya Revenue Authority came out and said, we are short of the target. The target was supposed to be 4 trillion. They collected, I think, around 1.8. I stand to be corrected on the figure. So it means even the projects zenye zimekuwa proposed haziwezi endelea. Then we have our government that is trying to expand the wage bill in terms of employing CSs, creating more offices.